Hello, guys. Welcome to my very first podcast. This is Annie Grace M. Cavite, a dreamer and your future teacher. Now, this podcast is all about value formation and teaching as a vocation, mission, and profession. Now, let's start with the values formation and you. As of this moment, I know that some of you might have questions in your mind as you have heard what our topic is all about. Is there such thing as right and unchanging universal values? Well, there are two possible answers. If you were in an idealist point of view, there are unchanging and universal values. The values of love, care, and concern are called transcendent values. And the other one is the relativist point of view. This claim that there are no universal and unchanging values. Now, are values taught or caught? Well, it works both ways. Values are taught and values are caught. Now let us focus on three dimensions of values, such as cognitive, affective, and behavioral dimension. First is the cognitive. When we say cognitive, it is related to one's knowledge, reasoning, and thinking, wherein we must understand the value that we want to acquire. So the next would be the affective dimension, in which Aquino in 1990 quoted that it is not enough to know what honesty is, or why one should be honest. One has to feel something towards honesty, be moved towards honesty as preferable to dishonesty. So affective dimension is what we experience towards something that will influence us. And lastly, the behavioral dimension, living by the value, is the true acid test if we really value like honesty. This is where we are knowledgeable enough to act what is wrong and what is right. Now, since we are done with the dimension of value, let us now move to the value formation is a training of the intellect and will. Your intellect discerns a value and presents it to the will as a right or wrong value. Your will wills to act on the right value and wills to avoid the wrong value presented by your intellect. As described by St. Thomas Aquinas, the intellect proposes and the will disposes. It is clear that nothing is willed unless it first known. Thought must precede the deliberation of the will. An object is willed as it is known by the intellect and proposed to the will as desirable and good. Hence, the formal and adequate object of the will is good as apprehended by the intellect. It is quoted by William Kelly in 1965. It is therefore necessary that you develop your intellect in its three functions, namely, formation of ideas, judgment, and reasoning. After introducing transcendent values, let me introduce you to the process of value clarification. When we do not know what we really value, or when we are not clear on what we really value, we end up lukewarm or uncommitted to a value. The advocates of value clarification assert that we must clarify what we really value. The term value is reserved for those individual beliefs, attitudes, and activities that satisfy the following criteria. First is the freely chosen. The second one is chosen from among alternatives, followed by chosen after due reflection. And the fourth one is the prized and cherished, followed by publicly affirmed, incorporated into actual behavior, and lastly, acted upon repeatedly in one's life. This means that if you value honesty, you have chosen it freely among alternatives and from considering its consequences. You prize it and you are proud of it, and so you are not ashamed for the others to know that you value it. You practice and live by honesty, and have made it your habit to act and live honesty. Now let us move to the last topic, which is the teaching as your vocation, mission, and profession. According to Carl Jung, one looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings. But first, let us define what is vocation. Vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, which means to call. Based on the etymology of a word, vocation therefore means a call. If there is a call, there must be a caller, and someone who is called. There must also be a response. For Christians, the caller is God Himself. For our brother and sister Muslims, Allah. Believers in the Supreme Being will look at this voiceless call to have a vertical dimension. For non-believers, the call is also experienced, but this may be viewed solely along a horizontal dimension. It's like man calling another man, never a superior being calling man. Now, teaching as your vocation. Perhaps you never dreamed to become a teacher, but here you are now, preparing to become one. How did it happen? From the eye of those who believe it, it was God who called you here to teach, just as God called Abraham, Moses, and Mary of the Bible. Now, teaching is also a mission. The word mission comes from the Latin word missio, which means to send. You are called to be a teacher, and you are sent into the world to accomplish a mission, to teach and to accomplish an assigned task. Teaching is your mission means it is the task entrusted to you in this world. If it is your assigned task, then naturally, you've got to prepare yourself for it. You have embarked on a mission that calls for a continuing professional education. As the saying goes, once a teacher, forever a student. How about teaching as your profession? Why does a profession require long and arduous years of preparation and a striving for excellence? Because the end goal of professional is service, and as we have heard many times, we cannot give what we do not have. We can give more if we have more. Our service to the public as a professional turns out to be dedicated and committed only when our moral, ethical, and religious values serve as our bedrock foundation. The same moral, ethical, and religious convictions inspire us to embrace continuing professional education. Oops, it's quite long. I think this will be the end of our discussion for today. Thank you for listening and keep on learning.